The biggest week of the season. No hyperbole there, as the Atlanta Braves face a 7-game homestand that figures to have a major impact on their place in the National League East and wild card standings. You're watching BPTV. Cory, McCartney, and Grant McAuley with you as always. Grant, no way around it. I mean, a 7-game stretch versus the NL East leading Mets and then 3 versus the AL East leading Astros is an absolute gauntlet.
No, no, it absolutely is. And this is going to be a battle for the Braves to not only, hold on to the momentum that they got in turning their road trip around, but also I've called it a pivotal point of the season. This battle with the Mets has it really started to sway in one direction because New York taking 4 out of 5 to start that road trip really felt like a giant setback for the Braves. And it felt that way because it was quite a setback. But the good thing was Atlanta was going to be able to come home and perhaps have an opportunity to atone for that. But now it's right here and right now. And the Braves have got to get as many of these 4 games against the Mets as they can. But then, as you said, you can't let your foot off the gas at all because then the Astros roll into town and they're only one of the best teams in baseball as well. So you want a gauntlet, you certainly got one.
It's the only time the rest of the season that the Braves will have consecutive series against teams in position to make the postseason. Also, the only, at this point, current back-to-back series versus teams with winning records. So big in any way, shape, or form. We'll talk about the Astros series and that World Series rematch later in the week. But as for now, the next 4 days, the Braves get the team ahead of them in the East standings. They won't see the Mets again until September 30th. And New York plays 24 games versus losing teams that final month. So the Braves absolutely have to do their part to make up ground in this head-to-head clash. The pitching matchup is going to be Spencer Strider and Carlos Carrasco on Monday, Charlie Morton, Taijuan Walker on Tuesday, Jacob DeRizzi and Max Scherzer on Wednesday, and then Jacob deGrom against a to-be-determined Braves armor on Thursday. Could be Max Fried, could be Kyle Wright. Both are dealing with issues that had them skipped. Could be an arm that we saw over the weekend from AAA Gwinnett, or could be a returning Ian Anderson. Regardless, Grant, the Mets rotation has been the juggernaut they were expected to be since July 5th. They had the game's best ERA at 2.10. That's when Max Scherzer came back from the IL. Mm-hmm. Since DeGrom came back on August 5th, they're fanning an MLB best 10.62 per 9. We don't know whether, as I mentioned, the Braves' best arms are going to be in terms of ERA, and Fried and Wright are even going to pitch in this series, putting even more pressure, Grant, on those who are to try to match a Mets staff that through 12 games has held Braves batters to a 194 average and 2 runs per game.
Yeah, and I think we saw in that series head-to-head between these two clubs 5 games, and the Braves offense struck out 57 times. Meanwhile, the Mets offense proved nothing, if not extremely difficult for Braves pitchers to be able to keep under wraps and to be able to pitch deep into the game, or at least deep enough to give yourself a chance to, you feel like, match up with these Mets starters because they're when you look at Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom, you're looking at 2 guys with Hall of Fame credentials. So I don't think it's as much about the Braves pitching staff needing to match those guys up as much as it is needing to look at the Mets lineup and see how do we need to attack these guys to minimize their damage, short out some of their rallies, and just get deep enough into the game where maybe it becomes a battle of the bullpens because you feel like Atlanta at least has a chance there. Now, the best reliever between both of these teams also belongs to the New York Mets. It's Edwin Diaz. And spoiler alert, I think he's the best reliever in all of baseball. But I just look at this as kind of individual matchups. And if you're able to win in the individual phases, you have a chance to win these baseball games, I feel like. But the Mets, I mean, they're no joke. They do just about everything well. They have continued to show why they have staying power this year. And, Jacob deGrom just came back down to earth on his spaceship and stepped off and has been putting up otherworldly numbers again. So if they needed a boost from a production standpoint, from a mental standpoint, an emotional standpoint, they're getting all these things. And a lot of stuff's going right for the New York Mets right now. And that's why they're sitting where they are atop the NL East and with one of the best records in baseball.
Okay, so individual performances. I think Spencer Strider Monday, when you talk about matchups, that start to me might loom the largest outside of obviously just trying to set the tone. Back on July 12th, he held the Mets to 1 run. When they saw him again on August 7th, he lasted 2 2/3 innings, his shortest start since he moved over from the bullpen. The Mets obviously are one of the best fastball hitting teams in the league. They showed it against Strider. 2 of his lowest whiff rates on the pitch since moving to the rotation have both come in starts against the Mets. I'm really curious, Grant, to see how does he adjust, because I think that's a big storyline for the guy at this point that is the NL Fangraph WAR rookie leader.
Yeah, I mean, Spencer Strider's been terrific. I mean, there have been maybe a couple of speed bumps in starts for him since he moved to the rotation. And he's been exactly what the Braves have needed to help fortify a group that once again is now being tested as far as health is concerned. And this has pushed him into a matchup in where he is the one who's going to be sent out there to set the tone for this series. And I think he's been a pretty good tone setter for the Braves each and every time he's been out there, just about, because he does have the stuff to blow away and dominate an opposing lineup. But I don't know if you can approach the New York Mets lineup maybe the same way that you do all the other lineups. And that doesn't mean reinvent yourself and start throwing a knuckleball or something crazy like that. He doesn't necessarily need to change everything about who he is, but maybe it's just the sequencing and the way that he, doubles down on pitches, maybe triples down on pitches. Maybe this is the game where he needs to up the slider usage and just kind of use the fastball to, be in the strike zone and get ahead and see if he can get the Mets to chase, though that is obviously a little bit more difficult because not only do they not really chase that much, but they also have shown themselves to be pretty good at fouling pitches off and working counts. And as we say, and I hate continuing to use this one phrase, grinding out at bats. I feel like that has been tattooed in the front of my mind for the last month or two since we've seen these two clubs start to match up. But it is the reality of who they are. So I think that Spencer Strider may have to do a little bit of outside the box thinking to attack this team. And as they say, the old baseball cliche, maybe pitch backwards a little bit and get the Mets on their heels and see if he can't establish some dominance and get himself at least into the sixth inning, which the Braves definitely need, as I think that the bullpen got a little bit of a rest on Sunday, but after a doubleheader over the weekend has to feel a little bit taxed as well.
Yeah, he rarely used that changeup last time out against the Mets, so I think it's going to be interesting to see if he kind of sprinkles that in a little bit more this time around. And it's obvious with those Wednesday and Thursday starts against Scherzer or DeGrom, the Braves have to establish a tenor, not only on the mound, but offensively as well. Austin Riley, we know he's been one of the NL's best in the second half, top 5 in weighted run created plus. You go to the beginning of August, Michael Harris II, Ronald Acuna Jr. have been among the NL's best hitters in this month. We know the Braves have momentum, obviously coming in on riding a winning streak, but that's going to be put to the test against these pitchers. I think offensively, those two guys I mentioned, Acuna and Harris, are going to be crucial elements for the Braves in this series.
Not only do I think they're crucial, and of course, Ronald Acuna Jr. had a little bit of an injury scare over the weekend, but turned out to be fine, did play on Sunday, was able to pinch hit and finish the game in the field. So that has to have people feeling a bit of a sigh of relief because he had really heated up on this road trip, including torching the Mets. He was one of the few bright spots offensively against New York in that series. But yeah, you got to look at Austin Riley. Michael Harris, it's hard not to look at him because it seems like every day, every other day, he comes up with a big hit or a big play that helps the Braves win a baseball game, spark a rally, or do something otherwise that helps Atlanta's chances overall in winning. And, on top of that, I think that Dansby Swanson's been a little bit quiet in the second half, and he had a very off series against the Mets, not only at the plate, but also in the field. And I think that's something you have to look at for the Braves when it comes to winning individual matchups or, trying to succeed in all the phases of the game. Atlanta defensively didn't play as well as they could have in that Mets series. And while the offense was certainly struggling and the Mets didn't need extra runs on certain nights, well, there's no night that you need to be giving the club extra runs that you're playing against. So hopefully the Braves can shore that up and have the opportunity to get the starting pitching they need, maybe make it a battle of the bullpens and figure out a way to get their offense going because the Mets have been the team doing the slugging as well. So yeah, there's some individual players for the Braves that need to step up big time. I think Ronald Acuna Jr. is the guy that rises to the occasion, and he's certainly going to be a focal point for the Braves offense over the final month and a half of the season. That's for sure.
Yeah, it remains a career year for Dansby Swanson, but he is, to your point, hitting below league average in the month of August. So they certainly need him to pick it up without question. The Mets are just part of a massive week, and we'll have more for you ahead of that Astros series here on BPTV. So make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications, and also don't forget Sundays on From the Diamond on 92.9 The Game. You can catch us there, also available wherever you find your podcasts. Until next time, I'm Cory McCartney. He's Grant McAuley, and we'll see you soon, Braves Country.